Hey, everybody. Welcome to the HireMyVA Team and Business Building Podcast, brought to you by ugozi.com and Victory. In this podcast and at HireMyVA, we help you to reclaim your freedom through hiring and thriving with virtual assistants without breaking the bank. Of course, that means your bank, the most important bank. And I'm Dave Braun, and I'm here with Larry Broughton, my business partner with Ugozi and HireMyVA, and a great friend as well. What's up, Larry?
Hello, handsome David. How are you?
I'm doing great, man.
How's the little grandchild? How is he doing?
He's doing great. Yeah, he just saw Logan, right? Oh man, he's just a joy and a half. So much fun. It's
crazy.
I mean, I wish we could start with grandkids first. Why is that? Why can't we do that?
Well, make sure that your two boys don't hear this episode.
Yeah. Okay, so that's going to be a future episode, everybody. That's the question I ask. Why can't we start with grandkids first?
I shouldn't have called your sons boys. They are not boys. They are grown men.
Oh, they are. They are. They're great guys.
Well, it's good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Okay, we got a really cool question. Ready for this?
A cool question. All right, bring it. What is it?
Okay, well, it is, what do I look for in a business development team? And most importantly, how do I hold them accountable?
All right, so
it's kind of a two-parter, right?
It is a two-parter, and they frankly are two different things. I think the second one, stand by. If you don't have a business development team in your organization, stand by, because that second part you can use for any relationship you have in your life, whether it's a love relationship, a friend relationship, a business partner, a team member, whatever it is.
And yourself. You may be your own business development team, right? Can hold yourself accountable.
What? I was just on a mastermind call with the folks at Alignable this morning, and that was one of the questions, right? And holding yourself accountable is one of those things that a lot of us don't like to do.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
Yeah, if we would just hold ourselves accountable for our own goals and for our own standards, how would our lives be different, Dave? Right? Yeah. All right. So your question about business development, like, what do we look for?
Yeah, let's talk about that. So the first part is like, what do we look for? And then the second part is, say we're doing it with somebody, even ourselves, how do we hold them accountable?
Well, maybe we got to describe what is business development, first of all.
Okay. Dave. Okay. I like that.
What do you think it is? When somebody says business development in your brain, what comes to mind?
Well, really, I think what comes to mind, you could lump it together a couple of things, but the way I like to think about it is, what somebody taught me once is, you think about, really there could be multiple stages, but think about the 3 stages of sales.
Yep.
Actually, let me back up. So think about the stages of lead generation first, sales, and then operations or fulfillment, right? So I look at business development as in those, in the lead generation / sales arena. Now, where somebody might divide it up, it's probably a little bit more depending upon what you want to do. My guess is it'd be more in the lead gen area, maybe crossing over into sales, or lead gen / qualified lead gen.
Yeah. And I'm glad we're spending a moment on this, because business development is a term that's used pretty broadly, right? And you need to determine, are we talking about B2C, which is business to consumer, business to customer? Are we going B2B, business to business, right? Like in my organization, we've got both, right? In the hotel business, we're trying to get guests, and we call those sales people, sales, or it's business development, where we've got someone actually going out and trying to raise large amounts of money in order to grow the organization, right? But either way, there are things you should be looking for when you try to find someone who's going to be representing you in your organization to the public. Public might be potential consumers, might be potential partners, right? So to me, one of the things I'm always looking for, Dave, is someone who has high, not just IQ, they don't need to be geniuses, right? But they need to be problem solvers, but they need to have high EQ as well. they really need to understand how to have a conversation with someone, how to connect with someone, right? How to have empathy with someone, how to read body language. There's a lot of intangibles that go along with effective salespeople or business development people, because they got to connect with people at all levels, whether it's the president of the bank or the president of the organization, or it's the gatekeeper at that organization. Those are all very important things to look at, as well as the things that you and I talk about all the time. We teach this in our Victory Mastermind program, and we've written articles about this, is we're not just looking for people with a lot of experience. That's great. Looking at their track record, what's their experience? Have they done this before? But we're always looking for someone who's highly motivated, Dave, who has the attitude, I get to go work with Dave today. I got to go work for Dave today. So they're highly motivated. They want to do this. Got lots of integrity, because this is one of those areas, Dave, when you're talking about fundraising, you're talking about setting prices, you're talking about bringing in potential clients, they better have a lot of integrity. Your potential clients, bankers, partners, whatever, better be able to trust this person. If they trust your business development person, by virtue, they're going to trust, it says, I trust you as an organization. So motivation, integrity, and then of course, capacity. This is the thing that oftentimes people forget. You want to have team members, particularly these folks, if they're doing their job, guess what's going to happen to your organization? It's going to grow. Right? Yeah. And the worst thing you want is your business development team to be so good at raising, getting leads, that they can't keep up with the growth that they're creating.
Yeah, they can't be out of step with the rest of the company.
Yes. Sure. Yeah. So those are some things that kind of come off the pointy tip of my head to start the conversation, Dave. So that's a good place to start, I think, with those few rapid fire tips.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously they've got to have some type of track record. Now,
sure,
there's a lot,
unless you're willing to invest in them because you see some glimmer of capacity in them, but then it's going to take a real investment.
It's going to take an investment of time, and it may be less dollars, but a little bit more of your time. But that might be a good thing for you to do, because sometimes in business, it's one of the hardest things to do is to find, like what you talked about, MIC, motivation, integrity, capacity. If you have the right person, if they don't have enough experience or a track record, it might be relatively not easy, but they may be able to generate that. You may be a great beta client for them, and it may work out really, really well.
Yeah.
Sometimes, trust is the most overriding, the highest important factor for somebody,
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. One of the things you need to consider as well, particularly for seasoned biz dev people, whether it's directors of sales or actually, like, we've got in our organization a vice president of business development. His job is to go out and find, investors, financial partners, those types of things. Those people aren't cheap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
And you need to keep that in mind. Okay. So the value that they bring has got to align with your budget, or at least your potential budget.
Right.
So that's really important. So I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time talking to somebody. If someone's got to be making $500,000 a year in a base salary, which is conceivable, if they're going to be blowing up your business by millions of dollars, right? If that's not even in your realm, don't talk to them unless it's an information gathering meeting. Talk to somebody who doesn't have as much experience, right? So make sure that the budgets are aligned. Now, there's a couple ways to do this, Dave. You can pay a high base salary and a lower commission, or you can pay a lower base salary and a higher commission. I've never known a business development person or a salesperson worth their salt that has not wanted to have some kind of incentive plan that's based on their production.
Yeah.
If you bump into a business development person or a salesperson who doesn't want a commission, I wouldn't consider them unless they have a real answer for you. Like they're really transparent. Dave, I've been out of work for X number of years due to the pandemic, and I need to support my family right now. you see my track record. Here's my list of references from people I've performed for in the past, both clients and employees. I need to have basically a guaranteed salary for 3 months or 6 months. And after that, we can go on a draw or a commission basis. If someone is that direct with me, I'm much more open to hearing them than saying, nope, I've got to name the number, $80,000, $180,000 a year. And I'm good with that.
Yeah, that makes sense that it would be for a period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there is going to be the ramp up. Even if you've got someone, Dave, who is the most experienced business development person that you've ever met in your industry, they're not going to come in and turn on the switch and you've got revenue coming in the next day.
Yes.
It doesn't happen that way. Now, if I'm interviewing someone and I ask them, okay, so where are you going to get your business from? And they say, well, I'm going to bring them from my former employer. I get really uneasy with that. Well, why? Because it goes back to the integrity thing that we spoke about earlier. Right now, if they've got clients that aren't happy with your former employer, that's one thing. But what happens when, Joe Blow candidate, we hire them and then we've got issues with them and they leave my organization? What are they going to do?
Yeah.
They're going to go after my clients, right? I want to know that they've got a pool where they can go fish and bring new business in. Again, if they got a former client that has followed them from place to place, you got to think about that. But if it's a client they brought to their former employer and they're just not happy there, their needs aren't being met, that's a different story. But if someone says, I'm going to bring all my clients from all my past employers, I've passed on plenty of those people before.
Yeah, that makes sense to do that. That makes sense to do that. Yeah, and I think one of the other things, you talk about budget, but there's also got to be some kind of time frame where you expect a payoff on this, right? In other words, you're giving them a salary, at least part of it, but there's got to be a point where they're really bringing in the business or fulfilling their promises to your organization. And like you said, you can't expect it up front, but you got to have an agreement and said, hey, you better be bringing something in somewhere along the way in a few months. Maybe it ends up being
too long. Yeah,
that may be too long. Maybe it's a month, maybe it's 2 months, but there's got to be some type of movement, right?
Yes, that's the thing. And it's going to you have to set your expectations up front and have a conversation during the interview process and then confirm it once they're on board with you. Say, hey, during the interview process, here's what we discussed. That I'm going to expect you to start doing sales calls, biz dev calls, whatever, immediately, day one. And I'm going to want to start seeing your call log and your meeting log immediately. And at some point, and you're going to talk them through this, here's what the sales process looks like. At some point, I'm going to be brought in to the introduction. The worst thing you can do, I think, as a business owner is to have your business development person do the entire sales process, introduce them to your operations team or whatever the next step is. And you never, as the owner, meet that person. You want to get them to start building loyalty to you and your organization more than the business development person. There's a fine line here, right? You need to start managing that relationship a little bit, right? But the way I've done it is I need to start seeing sales calls and your call reports on a weekly basis. Mm-hmm. We need to start having real leads where we start negotiating within 4 weeks. Now, some of those are going to fall away, but by the end of the 30 days, depending on how complex your business is, we need to start seeing results by the end of the 90 days, like booking at least revenue in the pipeline. Okay, so like the revenue may not be materialized for 6 months, but it needs to be in the pipeline. Again, you might be a manufacturing organization and your production lead might be long. But if it's a short lead, you might be able to see some revenue in those first 30 days, right? But I think that like 6 months, a year is too long. At what point do you say enough is enough? I'm paying the salary for a full year before you see results. To me, that's too scary.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And again, every business may vary, right? And if you have a question about this, reach out to Dave or I, and we can talk specifically with you about your specific situation. But if you got ideas on this, and we've got a lot more to share with this, I can tell you, I got a bunch of things in my brain, but I want to hear from you guys too. How are you, what are you looking for when you're looking for a business development person?
Right.
Keep going, Dave. I'm sorry. I stepped on you there.
No. What the question I had that came into my mind in this is, do you think that there's any difference between that time frame between a regular, normal for-profit business and a nonprofit?
Yeah, well, the only thing I would say is my experience with both being on nonprofit boards and donating to nonprofits is the budget cycle for the people with whom you are soliciting money from.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I get this all the time. It gets to be December or January, and people solicit us for donations, and we've already made all of our donation decisions back in September and October because our budgets need to be done, finalized by November 15th.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start approaching me around Christmas time to donate immediately, it's like, sorry, you're gonna have to wait till the next year. Now you can if you want, you can go ahead and do a meeting with me and you can try to get a commitment from me. But I can tell you in our organization, when we were, had 20 hotels, there was a whole committee that this stuff would go through, right? So you need to know your industry. Right. So basically, I guess, Dave, to answer your question, how would I do that? Let's get serious about the specific. I guess I would want to start seeing commitment letters from folks. They don't need to give me the money now, but I need to see commitment letters from them. Yes, the next budget season, $10,000 are going to donate to whatever your nonprofit might be.
That's a great KPI right there.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? You asked the question, and I know that your bride has been in nonprofit for, a lot of years. What's her experience with that? Or what do you think?
It's been very tough for them to get good business development people, or let's see. So the reason I pause on this is because I don't know if the people are good or if they are just hamstrung somehow by the organization, but it's been difficult. They've run through some of the nonprofits that I know, they've run through a lot of business dev folks. And I don't know if that's because they're not being helped to be introduced to other people, because and when you're a nonprofit, and you're a new business development person, you hopefully have some relationships with other companies at that point, but you may have already been using them to get donations to another company, right?
Yeah.
So it's still going to take a little bit of time in connecting.
We may want to do a podcast on this, or do a work or action guide or something for nonprofits on this. I can think of a bunch of ways to do this. By holding fundraisers, asking for referral leads from your current donors. There are a bunch of ways to do this. And I can think of a couple of boards that I've sat on where I've always questioned, like, we're not being very efficient in our fundraising efforts, So,
well, and a lot of times in a nonprofit, I guess the last thing I'll say is, a lot of times in the nonprofit, bring somebody new in, they've got to have some relationships established, but a lot of times I think what they need is to have just a quick introduction. In other words, like you being the CEO, bring your biz dev team or somebody in your biz dev person and introduce them to some of the people that you already know, and then they can go work those leads, right? To get that relationship going. So anyway.
Yeah. Dave, it feels like we're starting to transition into the accountability part of this, but before we switch gears, I also want to recommend that when you're vetting a candidate for business development, directors of sales, or whatever it is, that you consider actually doing a little bit of Google foo, internet research on these people, whether it's an independent person that you're hiring or a business development company. There are biz dev companies, you can look them up. BDCs is what the acronym goes by. Get references, not the ones that they give you, right? But go on, look at their LinkedIn reviews, look at their Google reviews, look at other review sites that are out there, look at articles that have been written. I would type in biz dev company, the name of the company, and add the word fraud to it, or fake, and see what comes up. Now, keep in mind, for a while there in the, what time frame was it? Early 2000s, there were a lot of businesses that were writing negative reviews about other businesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then a lot of these sites, which is, really bad karma. Don't do that, and a lot of review sites cracked down on that once they realized what was happening. They started finding IP addresses, on this. It can be traced, right? So don't do that kind of stuff. But if it's an individual, look at their LinkedIn profile. What are people saying about them? How are they commenting on other, people's posts, and see whether they're going to be a good cultural fit.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that makes sense. And they should have a bunch of stuff out there in the, when you Google them, there should be a bunch of stuff that you can find.
You would hope so, right? Yeah.
Well, unless you're going to be their first beta client or something, then that may be different. But okay.
Yeah.
Well, that you said this was a good time to transition to, well, how do you hold them accountable? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, Larry? What's one of the most important things you think?
Well, when you mentioned this, I don't remember whether it was an article or it wasn't a book. It might've been a book summary. And I'm sorry if somebody knows the name of this concept, please send us a message. Cause I don't like to take other people's ideas and pretend it's my own. I like to give attribution when I can. Yeah. And this is not my idea, but it did resonate with me. And they called it the accountability dial. And it's like, imagine a dial on your oven, the old kind, not the digital, but a dial on a thermostat or a dial on your oven or something like that. And it broke it down like this. So just imagine, low. If you're listening to this, what I'm doing is I've got a little dial I'm turning. Okay. And near the top is
in the air
is kind of cool or low heat. And as you turn down clockwise, the more clockwise you go, the higher the heat goes, right? And so let me see if I get these right. I don't remember exactly how many there were. There might have been 5 comes to mind. So the lowest heat is the mention. All right. Then the next one is the invitation. The next one is the conversation. The next one is setting boundaries or the boundary. And then finally was the limit, like you're done. Now let me go back, and I think that was it. Mention, invitation, conversation, boundary, and limit. Yes, that's it. So the first one is this, Dave, like you're passing each other in the hall. It's just a short kind of comment, or feedback. Hey, Dave, I noticed that your TPS reports haven't been getting distributed on time. Is everything okay? That's just a mention. Water cooler kind of stuff.
Okay.
The next one is kind of is the invitation, which is more of a informal chat where you say, hey, Dave, I've mentioned those TPS reports not getting out on time a few times. There's a pattern starting to happen here. What's going on? All right. Okay. The next one is the conversation. This is the, you ever get a call from your bride, Dave? We need to talk.
No, Larry, never. No, never.
This is the we need to talk. All right, Dave, these TPS reports and you not getting them in on time is really impacting the effectiveness of the entire team here. We have to sit down and discuss this and resolve why these aren't getting out on time. Okay. All right. Okay. The next one is the boundary. This is where, the heat really starts to get turned up. Dave, if the delinquency and the tardiness of these TPS reports don't change, we're going to have to consider whatever, making a significant change in this department, or, whatever your consequence is. Right. And then the limit is, your limit. And you say, Dave, we've had so many conversations about these TPS reports. This is your final warning. So let me lay this out for you. If this doesn't change, and I have to have one more conversation with you, whatever you do in your organization, we're setting you free, we're terminating the agreement, whatever it is. Does that make sense? I loved that kind of visual of the mention, the invitation, the conversation, the boundary, in the limit. What this comes down to, though, Dave, is communication. And this is the thing that you and I have found in leadership. How many leaders are ineffective because they're afraid to have these difficult conversations?
For sure.
Right. What I love about this is that it starts out really easy breezy. The problem is people stuff it because they don't like having difficult conversations. And what they do is they jump from 0 to boundary.
Yeah.
It's really hard to have that conversation if you've been internalizing it the entire time, and then I got to hold you accountable. But if it's easy breezy in the beginning about the mental, hey, it's on my radar. I see that you're not meeting our expectations. Those TPS reports need to get done. And you ratchet it up, it makes having that communication, these difficult conversations, much more, it's easier, it's more effective. You're acting like a leader. You're going to be treated like the leader that you are. So that's kind of my take on the whole accountability thing.
That's really, really cool. We need to come up with
again,
an acronym for
that. If anybody knows where that came from, let me know. We could probably Google search it, but I don't remember where I saw it.
Well, I think we could turn that into a whole nother episode, is like, how do you start having conversations with somebody that is not performing the way that you want?
Yeah.
I love those 5 steps.
Yeah, me too. And so I do want to give attribution to whoever it was that came up with that.
Okay.
The name Dave comes to mind for some reason, not Dave Braun, but
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, you know what, Larry, that's interesting is that we've been working together for a long time now. I've never heard you say that before that way. Never. Like thinking of imaging it as a dial, like an oven and turning it up, and these actual 5
Well,
things.
I have read, this is something I read early on in COVID. I do remember that. So it's been within the last couple of years.
Okay.
So whether it's been out there for a dozen years or not, I don't know.
All right. We got to come up with an acronym and do a separate podcast on it.
Okay.
I like it. Let's do that. Okay. Note taken. All right. Some more accountable stuff. So let's get into a few other things. I think one of the things that we've heard of some folks who have actually maybe paid some people up front.
Oh gosh.
And that we shouldn't do that.
Well, if it's a team member, you're going to wait till your payroll to do it. I mean, if you're actually bringing them on board. If it is a BDC, a business development company, no, do not pay them up front. Now, they may want a retainer, a small retainer up front, but you don't pay them the entire thing up front. I get that, it's a professional services organization. So for them to do work for you, yes, there are going to be incurring costs that you need to cover. But let's say that the agreement is, that their contract is $25,000 and they're going to be working with you for 6 months. You don't pay them $25,000 on day one for 6 months of work. What's their incentive now to start working month 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, it's
their financial incentive, right?
Yeah. Now, so 2 things with that, Larry. One is we're not talking about $500. We're talking about multi-thousands of dollars, right? So anything that's multi-thousands of dollars, you are not going to pay everything up front. If you're getting a remodel on your home, if you're getting a very expensive website, right?
You say that as if, but I do know people who have, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so do you.
Normally, we shouldn't.
Don't make me say.
I won't. But there at least there is some guidelines there. So think about it in those terms. And when you hire, say you hire a new team member, do you pay them their first 2 weeks of salary the day that they start?
No.
You may give them a signing bonus. Okay, that's fine. And you only need to do that when to attract them, and depending upon the environment, you do that, but you don't pay them until they've worked for you.
Yeah.
You've seen some stuff happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if it's a BDC, a business development company, you may have to pay them a little bit, or some, maybe even 25 to 50% to start. But then there are benchmarks along the way that they have to hit. And especially if it's a BDC, especially if it's a BDC, you have to have conversations where you define what your expectations are, but hopefully you've had the conversation before you've hired them, and you ask them for this price, what can I expect from you to be bringing to me? Because why is that? It's easier to hold them accountable if they said it. Dave,
Yes.
you told me that you expected to bring in $100,000 in the first month, and we've got $1,000. Help me understand, what's the problem here? Where are we falling short? Are we not providing you the tools? Are we not opening up our calendars enough? You have to have those conversations. As soon as you expect that they are not going to be hitting benchmarks, it's time to have those mentions that we talked about earlier, then those invitations.
Yeah.
Right? Don't wait until you get to the end of the contract or halfway through the contract or day number 89 of the 90-day probationary period to have these conversations. Be courageous, my friends.
Yeah. And going into it, the company, whoever you're hiring, they should be able to provide you those KPIs or what the benchmarks should be. Sure. But then before you have that conversation, you better be having a few in your mind as well.
Sure.
Because they could just be, hopefully not, but if you don't want them to be snowing you, but they could not be doing the right KPIs or what you expect.
Yeah. In a way to make this so that you don't have to dig so deep into your courage well is to have regularly, preferably weekly updates and conversations about progress.
Yes.
Right. And that doesn't mean for the rest of your relationship, you have to have weekly conversations, but certainly during the early days of the relationship, whether it's a team member, an employee of yours, or a BDC that's on retainer, once they have a proven track record and it's very predictable how much they're coming in, you probably don't need to meet with them on a weekly basis, or let's say it was a half-hour conversation before, maybe it's just a 10-minute checkup, anything I need to be aware of. Because at this point, you're going to have KPIs and you're going to be tracking them, and you're going to be able to see, hopefully some of those KPIs are actually leading indicators, so you can see, hey, this is starting to dip. If that leading indicator starts to dip, you think, well, gosh, we got to tweak something here so that we start seeing more better performance into the future. Hope that makes some sense.
Yeah. So that's a good point, is whenever you're having KPIs on anything, you really should be mixing leading and lagging.
Yeah. So Dave, what's a leading indicator and what's a lagging indicator?
Well, a lagging indicator says it's kind of looking at the past and saying, here's what's happened, and here is the value of what's happened. A leading indicator is something that says we do enough of this, or it hits this certain amount, we expect a certain result in the future.
That's right.
Right. So that's a leading indicator.
The number of successful sales calls you have, it's a leading indicator. Financial performance is a lagging indicator. There are some that are both leading and lagging indicators, right? Client satisfaction scores, for instance, say, oh, we really screwed up this past transaction that we had with this client. So why is that a leading indicator though, Dave? Because if you have too many of those and word starts getting out, you stop getting clients in the future. So if you've got, so like in the hotel industry, for instance, I think across the industry, let's just pick a number. I'm pretty sure it's 80%, right? Guest satisfaction scores across the industry. If you have 88% guest satisfaction, word of mouth is going to travel that you're really, providing an exceptional experience. If it's 68%, word's going to get out, and you can expect, I'm going to have to be cracking that whip. That's a bad analogy. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. You're going to have to be nose to the grindstone, getting more sales efforts, fixing whatever it is that people are complaining about, reading those really nasty reviews, taking an action plan to fix those things so that you get your scores closer to the industry average and hopefully exceeding the industry average. Because I can tell you, like, one of the things that we do right now when we're going out and talking to potential and future investors is I show them, here's our guest satisfaction scores compared to the industry. Here's our market penetration scores. Here's our team member satisfaction scores, right? And when it's quantifiable, they say, yeah, all right, this is an organization that's going someplace.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Oh yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
So so in summary, both leading and lagging indicators are important for your KPIs in all aspects of your life and your business.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess maybe one of the other tips that we've got is, regardless of, the time frame and when everything is supposed to happen in your KPIs. We talked about if they're going to give you a whole bunch of business, hopefully they've got some experience. They should be helping you and suggesting, some systems that will enable them to be successful and that for you to be successful in handling the new business. You may have to come up with a different system if they're bringing in leads where they can automatically put something on your calendar or a new CRM, or it's like, hey,
lead gen software.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Email.
And then you as the business owner need to start being ready to be able to handle all that extra business. So you got to get your systems in place. You got to step it up on your SOPs, your team, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I would say this, I would hope that those conversations happened before you brought the BDC or the biz dev person onto the organization or into the organization, right? That's what I'm always expecting to have. If I'm hiring a quality business development person, I'm expecting them to say, okay, what tools do you currently have? How are you currently doing it? How effective has the past folks been in this role?
Yes.
And I would say, tell me, what do you do? What do you need in order to be effective at this? If I'm going to be investing this money in you, what do you need to be effective?
Exactly.
Right. So that when that person starts, let's say, well, I only use Salesforce and I have found Salesforce to be better than all the others that are out there. And you think, well, gosh, I've been wanting to switch to Salesforce or whatever it is, and I've got this really cheap version and I keep missing, follow-ups with my clients. Maybe it's time to invest in it. Maybe get Salesforce on board before that person even joins the team.
Yeah.
This takes an investment of time, energy, emotions, for sure.
Yeah. So really count the cost. If you're going to hire a business development person or a team or an outside company, it's not just the cost of them. There's going to be some ancillary costs around it. Right.
Well, yeah. And I would say that I would congratulate you if you're at that point in your business where you're considering bringing a BDC or a biz dev person into your team. Congratulations, because that means you're growing. Generally it's the founder, CEO, business owner that does this in the beginning, right? And you start realizing, man, it's very difficult for me to do that and run my business at the same time. I need to start bringing on experts that are bolder and brighter than I am, who have more experience in this area than I am. Because now it's probably the time where you're starting to realize you can't be the master of every function in your business. You have to bring on people who are smarter than you are in specific tasks. So congratulations on that.
Yep. Bring them on that are smarter, but you've always got to still be willing to hold them accountable.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, that's where you will excel as a CEO. If you do nothing else and you are an effective communicator as a CEO and leader, you'll be head and shoulders above a lot of this. I'm just getting texts literally before you and I got on this from a friend of mine who is dealing with a boss or a leader. And I said, well, it sounds more like a boss than a leader, who uses yelling and threats as a management technique. And she was saying how he doesn't communicate. He gets to a tipping point and he explodes. Right?
Yeah.
Communicate effectively, folks. This is why I love this, dial approach I was talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Mention, invitation, conversation, boundary, limit. That's what I was saying at the start of this call, is that even if you're not ready to hire a business development person now, the accountability part is a really important part.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay.
Awesome.
Anything else, sir?
I'm about to lose my voice.
Yeah. Going into this question, I was thinking, well, let's see. We probably won't talk too long about it, but man, we really went longer than we thought.
No, I think it's good value.
It was good. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. And remember, building a team is the way to reclaim your freedom, and we're to help you with our course and community. And obviously our white glove service where we find a rockstar VA for you. So 3 things we'd love for you to do right now. And we'd really, really appreciate. Number 1, subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already done so, either on your iPhone or your Android phone. And then on YouTube by hitting the subscribe button that's there, and then click on the little bell next to it to get reminders. And then number 2, give us a rating, preferably 5-star. Leave a comment below this video. As Larry talked about, leave something about, your experience with biz dev, or a KPI that you think you need to make sure that they do. Anything, because it will help us to get the word out, and other people will be able to learn from you as well. And then number 3, go to HireMyVA.com for more information on our course and community and our white glove service, and get our free checklist to learn what you need to do to properly prepare for, hire, and thrive with a virtual assistant.
Yes. And
remember, though, even without experience, you'll learn how to prepare for, hire, and thrive with virtual assistants. Larry and I have helped a lot of folks, and we want to help you too. So just go to HireMyVA.com for more information.
Hey, we love doing this, you guys. We love interacting with you. We love getting your questions and your comments. Keep those coming. But do yourself a favor. Do the world a favor. Go do something significant today. All right. God bless you. God keep you. God hold you. I'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.